You're listening to Goof On Radio with Rich Giordano.
My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
There has been and is an existing presence, an ET presence. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to change reality.
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
Goof On Radio.
Or you were either out, brother.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Goof On Radio with Rich Giordano.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Goof On Radio.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
You're listening to Goof On Radio with Rich Giordano.
I'm a religious person. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
And what's your name?
Stanton Friedman.
And you are?
The nuclear physicist who lectures all over the world about flying saucers.
You've been around.
Hey guys, welcome to Goof On Radio. Your host Rich Giordano. Well, sad day for ufology and just sad day period for the passing of Stanton Friedman, the man who kept ufology, and somebody's calling me. I don't know why. Hello?
Are you doing a show tonight?
Yeah, I'm on right now.
Oh, fuck.
All right.
Okay.
I'm only.
Well, coming on,
I'm just doing it.
with me.
I'm just doing it for an hour.
Okay. Never mind. I'll call you back.
Yeah, all right, bye. That was Dave Scott calling. Wondering if I was doing a show. I guess he didn't subscribe to the channel because he would have gotten the notice. Stan Friedman is right there. This is a clip I pulled out because it shows him as him. And I think with his passing, because Stanton Friedman did bring a kind of even keel of intelligence, honorable, and humble attitude towards ufology, whether he was on stage or whether you were standing next to him, as I have a few times. I never had him on the show, and I'll tell you why. when we get back after. I want to watch a little bit of this clip. Passing of Stanton Friedman, May 13th was yesterday. So I want to remember him the way I experienced Stanton Friedman. I would like to share that with you tonight. So this is just a short show about Stanton and trying to remember an icon. I like to think of him as my godfather of ufology, even though he was more about the Roswell thing. But damn it, you know Stanton Friedman's voice without even having to look up. That's powerful. Check it out.
For a long time.
I've been interested in UFOs since 1958. We've lived here for 30 years, so no, more than that. My goodness, 33 years in Fredericton.
In Fredericton?
Yeah.
Long time.
Moved here from Northern California. Everybody does that.
Yeah, I rode a 10-speed bike from Halifax to San Francisco about 30 years ago. Yeah.
I haven't.
Listen, you were on the Larry King Show?
I've been on the Larry King Show 4 times, yes.
How's it feel to be on the Larry King Show?
Well, he's a pretty nice guy. You have to watch what you're doing because you usually have people there who disagree with you, so you got to be alert. And it's a long way to go. The show was filmed in California. And,
yeah.
You know,
they pay your way?
They pay your way.
They pay your way.
Yeah.
They don't pay for
No,
motel?
they don't pay for meals. They do put you up at a hotel.
Yeah?
Yeah, people were shocked. Guy calls me and says, I almost didn't call you because I figure you're only in it for the money. I say, why do you say that? Well, I see on all those television programs. They don't pay. What do you mean they don't pay? They don't pay.
Listen, St. Justice Church, are you religious?
Depends on how you define that. I grew up, my parents kept an Orthodox Jewish home. I taught Sunday school, on the board of a temple. So I believe there are things we need to look after in the world. We need how we behave toward other people. I have some religious notions, yes.
But you also believe in flying saucers?
There's no conflict. As a matter of fact, I would recommend a book, The Bible in Flying Saucers, by Dr. Barry Downing, who's a clergyman, incidentally. Got a bachelor's in physics and a doctorate in divinity. Divine physics is his beat. And he goes through the Old and New Testament and finds saucer sightings all over. They didn't call them saucers. Who used saucers? You used a mug, you know. So, yeah, if you look throughout the Bible, you'll find stories that you have to say are flying saucer cases.
Really?
Yeah.
What chapter do you know?
Well, Ezekiel for one, Isaiah. When they're wandering in the desert, what's that pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day?
Okay.
Chemtrails.
There's a lot of it.
New Mexico. Did that exist? Where's it called again?
Say that again?
Was that flying saucer crash in New Mexico? Where's it called again?
Roswell, New Mexico.
Thank you.
Yes.
So
I'm the original civilian investigator, the Roswell incident.
Oh, were you?
I first heard about it in 1978. And I talked to Major Jesse Marcel, and I've been at it ever since. I've got a book out, Crash at Corona. That's the town actually closer to the case. I've got 5 books out.
5?
Yeah. Hey, you do a lot of research, you do a lot of travel, you do a lot of investigation. I've been to...
Did it happen? New Mexico, did it happen?
What?
Did it happen in New Mexico?
Yes.
It did happen?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about this man, Stanton Friedman. Welcome. I wanted to say, you know, what a great guy he was for ufology. Because he had to have been. I mean, when he walked into the room, he didn't require attention, but everybody would look. There's Stan. It's like, that guy, this guy, is ufology, pretty much. I mean, he was, for a long time. Stanton Friedman, when I didn't know anything about him and I first saw him on TV, I don't know where I saw him. I can't remember. It may have been about the Phoenix Lights. I'm not sure. It may have been way back then before I got into this in 2004. And nuclear physicist, ufologist Stanton Friedman who will reopen the case, I guess, on Roswell, 78, whatever. And made a name for himself, made this his life. I mean, he was a nuclear physicist. No one else that has this type of, I mean, it's hard to explain. He treated everybody nicely. I mean, look at this, what's going on here. This tells you about who he was. I have never heard any bad things about him. I don't know any bad things. I know a lot of people out there who've said things that they don't agree with his thoughts on Bob Lazar or the Roswell or anything else. But this cameraman didn't even know Stan Friedman, nor did Stan Friedman know him. And here they are having a conversation, and Stanton is telling him who he is, what books he's written. He's given this guy information because he's doing what I've talked about, what needs to be done, and it isn't. But the golden rule of life is to treat people the way you want to be treated. The guy wasn't a jerk to Stanton, and Stanton saw that he was a nice guy. Well, you know what? Let me talk to this guy. I've never heard a bad story about Stan Friedman. That doesn't mean he didn't have a fire in his belly, because between you and me, I wouldn't want to go up against him. All right, I take that back. I would love to go up against... Not Roswell, though. I don't talk Roswell, which is why I never had him on the show, because I have heard everything he could say. That's how much I listened to everything he said. And it was kind of like the Roswell. I don't talk about Roswell on my show. And I didn't have him not on the show because of that. It was only because, what else can he say? Well, everybody's like, well, Rich, why don't you just ask him things that nobody asks? Well, I should have. You know, because the interview would have been a little different, and I thought about this interview if I did have him on. I could have had him on. I mean, anybody can have him. I mean, he was that open. He'll go on anybody's show. You know, nice guy. And now that I look back, now that he's gone, well, now that he retired a year ago, and he's no longer gone, I mean, it's just weird. It's like surreal, you know. It's like, wow, we're never going to hear him speak live again. But it goes to what I said. He said everything 1,000,000 times over. And every time he said it, it sounded like it was the first time you heard it. Very smart. Of course, we can... That doesn't even have to be said, but just the way he spoke and the way he debated. And he did have a fire in his belly, you know, as an unassuming physical threat as he may have been. This is a guy who really had a passion. Now, this is just me saying it. I don't know him personally, but this is the persona. This is the glow of Stanton Friedman that was on all of us through all these years. And, I'm grateful for the 14 years that I tirelessly listened to him and read just about everything he's written. It's just weird that he's gone. I don't like it at all. Well, anyway, I don't know what he died of. But one thing I don't want to see, because if I see it, I will step on you like you are the ant that you would have been. I can't get the right words out. Because if I see anybody trying to make contact with Stanton Friedman, especially that Huff guy, what was his name? I can't remember. If that POS tries to get that spirit box out or whatever he does and try to make contact with Stanton, I will never stop coming after you. Yeah, I know. But we're talking about the strongest 300 in ufology, in the paranormal. So go ahead and do it. See what happens. I swear to you, I will lose my channel for it. Maybe I won't, but I don't know. But I'll be pretty pissed. I did pick a few videos out that I want to share with you because Stanton Friedman did a lot of interviews and a lot of conferences and so on. So it's not like I can go somewhere and pick something that you may or may not have heard. So I just picked the things that I thought I found interesting because I just found out today. I don't know if it was yesterday it was announced or late last night, but I found out just hours before the show tonight. Well, I wasn't even doing a show. So I wanted to, I was going crazy trying to find videos. So I'm going to play a couple here. And we can go way back. Let's go back to when Stanton Friedman just started out. Hold on, let me pull it up. Because he was on TV a lot, believe it or not. For the paranormal or UFOs or Roswell, he was on a lot. Oh, I got to get rid of this. Hold on now. Now I'm a little upset. Now I got to look for it. See, I had it all set up. But you know what happens. Something gets pressed. It's not that hard to find. I've had them already. Here we go. All right. Oh, is that it? That can't be it. I guess that's it. I don't know. This is going to start off where I wanted it to. So this is a long time ago.
Came from. Hundreds of flying saucer sightings pour in, especially in New Mexico, home to top-secret test sites for V-2 rockets and atomic and nuclear weapons. The city of Roswell itself is the base of the 509th, the world's only atomic air squadron. Just 2 years earlier, it had dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Oh, what was in those bombs?
If aliens were going to be interested in anything that happened on this planet, boy, they'd make a beeline for New Mexico.
As the story goes, on that fateful night in early July 1947, a violent thunderstorm rolls through Roswell. Out in the desert, rancher Mac Brazel sleeps fitfully in his tiny cabin.
There'd been a big electric storm, and he heard what he thought was an explosion that didn't sound like thunder.
The next morning, Brazel checks on his animals and notices they won't cross a pasture. He goes for a closer look and stumbles across debris littered over a large field.
And he finds this huge amount of stuff, strange material, covering an area hundreds of feet wide by...
Stan Friedman's great at saying two things. They've had this stuff, and the other word is there were these guys. Stan, damn you. Gosh darn it. Why did he have to go? I guess he was 84. Was he 84? 82? I don't know.
Almost 3/4 of a mile long.
The material is odd, lightweight, but incredibly strong. Brazel carries a few pieces to his neighbor's ranch.
Kind of a tan, light brown plastic.
Brazel mentions other debris, items covered with strange writing.
He said the writing wasn't like Japanese writing, but it was, I imagine, more like hieroglyphics or something like that.
The strangest material looks like aluminum foil, but with a weird ability to return to its original shape.
If you picked it up and folded it, it would unfold. And if you folded it several times, it would still unfold. And you couldn't tear it.
Brazel drags some of the debris to a shed. A few days later, he's on the phone with Frank Joyce, a local DJ and radio reporter.
They began to talk about things that might be out of this world. I thought maybe this is a hoax.
During the conversation, Joyce says Brazel mentions finding bodies in the wreckage.
And one thing that he mentioned on the phone was the horrible odor that was with these bodies.
Thinking Brazel might be insane, Joyce tries to end the call.
I advised him to go to the U.S. Army Air Corps because They are flyers and will know what to do about anything that flies.
Brazel does call Roswell Army Airfield. Major Jesse Marcel answers the phone. Marcel reports the call to his commanding officer, who orders him and a counterintelligence officer to go investigate.
He says, go out with him because the rancher said there's a whole mess of this stuff out there, and nothing that he brought in was conventional.
At the ranch, Marcel is also puzzled by the...
Unbelievable, right? So that happened in the 40s. What was it, 47? That was a long time ago. 47, where are we at now? 57, 67, 22 years. 22. Thank you. See, this is why Stanton Friedman was so good. He wouldn't make that mistake. 77? What is it, 70 years? 72. Whatever it is, it's a long time. Decades. So, Stanton didn't get involved with that till 30 years after it happened, which is interesting to me. But he heard about it, dropped his career as a nuclear physicist, said, forget it. I'm going to go look for UFOs. I mean, that's crazier than Lou Elizondo leaving his job with the FBI. That somebody would give up their career. Well, I guess Stanton was doing it for, what? He was a nuclear physicist for 30 years. Right? About that, 25 years. That's a long time to do something. Anyway, that was an older video. And the thing I like about that is it shows Stanton as we still see him today. It's weird. Even back then, he seemed like he was 70, right? I mean, he always seemed like he was old. Always. This is an older one, I believe.
Here is a sculpture done from a bunch of drawings like the ones you just saw.
Oh my God, look how old he
Your
is.
typical
or young.
little gray man. Or
Wait a
typical
second.
Zeta.
What was that picture of? Him doing what?
Here is a sculpture done from a bunch of drawings like the...
Oh my goodness, look at how long ago this was. This is the 70s, 80s. And they got the alien that the people said they saw. Kind of looks like a gray, but not. It is a mixture of guys. Now, if it was nighttime and they didn't crash their UFO, let's say they were abducting you, maybe they would be wearing spacesuits. And the big eyes were just the lenses. Our eyes are like this. Look at how big that cavity would be. It's almost a human. It's like a hybrid. But this is a nice old clip. Look at Stanton. See what I mean? He was still 60 years old back then. Well, I guess if he's been in the UFO field since 78, 88, 98, 40 years. 40 years. He stayed in ufology, whether it be Roswell, UFO reports, whatever. But there's a guy who stayed in this for 40 years, 3 times longer than me. Well, 15 years for me. This is crazy. I don't remember seeing this video.
The ones you just saw. Your typical little gray man. Or typical Zeta Reticulin, whatever you want to call it.
Look at him with the hat.
2 arms, 2 legs.
How cool is he, man? Look, he's just loving it. They said, you want to talk on the show? He says, I think I can do it. God, imagine that. Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist. He's working on atoms and crushing stuff. What do I know? And then all of a sudden, now he's talking about Roswell.
The head and the body, skull bigger in proportion to the body than ours. Big eyes, practically no nose, mouth, ears.
Alien kind of looks like a dick. Doesn't he look? He's like, what are you looking at? He says, if I had my laser gun, you know what I mean? But you don't. Look at him. He looks pissed. They made that mold when he was still alive. I'm kidding.
Typical alien.
In the days of Alex Jones in the Denver airport, conspiracy theories surrounding flying saucers almost seemed quaint. With disillusionment towards governing bodies and paranoia seemingly at an all-time high, modern conspiracies and their peddlers have been given unmerited legitimacy. Now, I'm no believer, but I don't think it's entirely fair to group in the possibility of extraterrestrial life with something like the claim the ruling elite is a race of lizard people. On this episode of Media Loss, we will listen to one of the leading proponents of UFOs, Stanton T. Friedman, as he makes the case that flying saucers are real.
Stanton T. Friedman. Did he ever lose the T and just become Stanton Friedman? Like Cher Bono just became Cher? Or was she always Cher? That's a bad analogy. Flying saucers are real. So he did this show. I don't know what he's doing here. Let's take a look.
This video, please subscribe.
I like remembering
As always,
people.
Thanks for watching.
This is Betty and Barney Hill. It's a very famous case. Took place in 1961. There's a whole book, The Interrupted Journey.
James Earl
television movie, The UFO Incident, starring
Estelle Parsons.
James Earl Jones. It was September 19th, 1961. Betty and Barney were driving home to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is on the coast between Portland, Maine, and Boston.
It's amazing. I don't remember this, but I bet you I watched it. Now, we're not going to get into all of this. You know, we're just going to look. You know what? Let's get to the next one. I got another video. But here he is. I'll play one last clip here. Maybe two more.
The experience.
Look at how old this is.
He tapes it. Induces amnesia at the end of the session, so Barney won't remember what he said, can't talk to Betty about it. Calms him down. Some of these are pretty powerful sessions. Sends Barney out, brings Betty in, does the same thing with her.
He said, I know it, but the others object. And I said, but this is my proof.
Oh, she sounds like her.
This goes on every week for 3.5 months, neither one of them knowing what's going on in the sessions, except that there must be something good happening because Barney's ulcer's taken care of. He's able to get back to work. Finally, Dr. Simon figures they're ready. He brings them both in together instead of separately and plays back a composite tape of all these sessions. I've heard the tape. They're astonished to find that they had each independently relived the same incredible experience.
Amazing story.
The beings that had been on the craft were now standing in the middle of the road, a dirt road, blocking our way. The car motor stalled. They separated, came up on each side, took us out of the car, and at that point, I realized that they undoubtedly planned to take us on board.
Of that craft having landed, of them being taken on board against their will, treated as specimens. Stick a needle here, scrape a little skin there.
I was taken into the first room, Barney into the second room, where we were given, as the leader, as I call him, gave us testing.
No religious messages, no trip anywhere.
Our examinations were very much similar in that with both Barney and I, they checked our eyes, ears, nose, throat, took samples of our hair.
Yeah, you know, they always test you for any diseases, right? When you cross into other countries. You have any lice, any measles, any chicken pox? No, no, no. Taking any fruit over? No. Did you have any children? What? Nothing. Go ahead. And one last clip from here. Looks like he's sitting down, so maybe this is something important.
Couldn't move, but it wasn't, like a hard skull.
None of this stuff matches. Now, I cannot say that we have proven that this is a hoax shot by this company at this location on this date. But Mr. Santilli told me not only that they had boxes of material about the cameraman, which proved that he was who he says he was and where he says he was at the time. None of that's been put forth. But he also said that Kodak had dated the film. Well, as it turns out, they hadn't. He'd given them a piece of leader with no image on it. Well, Kodak's requirements were about 50 frames, 2 seconds worth roughly, of film full width, because shrinkage is important from determining dates, and with image that's in the autopsy footage. He promised to provide it, promised to provide it, promised to provide it. The wreckage in the film.
Well, let's get on. Now, like I said earlier, Stanton, maybe small in stature, right? Wasn't a big guy, wasn't muscle bound. I don't think he ever worked out. Doesn't matter, though. This guy was like a bull. He loved the debate. I know he loved the debate. That's why he did what he did. That's why he was out there talking at these conferences. He wanted to challenge people. And he must have loved it. And you know why I know that? Without having to talk to him about it? Because that's what I love doing. I think a lot of you are the same way. You want to voice your opinion. Tell somebody they're wrong. It's not this way, it's this way. You're wrong. And I've heard Stanton say that. You are wrong. And I'm going to play a clip because he was on Larry King. Everybody's seen it, I'm sure. And Seth Shostak, Buzz Aldrin, Fox, James Fox with Larry King were all on this show. And this was one of my favorite performances by Stanton Friedman. Let me pull it up here. Yes, I may get this show blocked, but who cares?
We welcome Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr. Here in Los Angeles. He was shown UFO debris by his father.
This is the Stanton Friedman that I know, that you know. This is what he's always been. I love this clip. I'm going to play a few minutes.
Marcel, he's author of The Roswell Legacy. Stanton Friedman, one of the foremost experts on Roswell and UFOs. And in Roswell, New Mexico, is Julie Schuster, Executive Director of the International UFO Museum and Research Center at Roswell. Julie's father, Walter Hott, was the Public Information Officer at Roswell Air Base. He put out the press release about the UFO. Dr. Marcel, tell us about your dad.
Well, he was the base intelligence officer for the 509th Bomb Group, which is the bomb group that dropped the atomic bomb on Japan and won the war for us.
They were based at Roswell.
They were based at Roswell, at Roswell Army
Yeah,
Airfield.
yeah, we know all
and
that.
And as the intelligence officer.
With information.
They switched it.
The original description.
Oh, yeah, here's a good part.
We're launching these high-altitude grainy videos, blurry photographs.
Oh, wait, this is Shermer. Oh, I thought it was Seth Shostak. Okay, this is Shermer, the worst. Here's a guy who claims he's a debunker, but doesn't do any of the work. I've never seen anybody get so much airtime and then and it looks like the dumbest person you've ever seen. He is one of the worst. There's another one out there that's just, I can't remember his name, but oh my God.
They come here. So we have no evidence for either one. Probabilities are probably we're not alone. But it's a vast, empty universe. It's hard to get here and so forth. The set of evidences used to prove that they've come here are sub what we would expect in a scientific debate. For example, if you're a biologist and you want to name a new species, you have to actually have a type specimen, an actual body. So I always say to the Loch Ness monster people or Bigfoot or aliens, show me the body. I mean, once we have that, then we have what scientists consider to be empirical data, where we can dissect it, photograph it, discuss it, look at it, and so forth. So far, this is still at the level of grainy videos, blurry photographs, and anecdotes
What
about
about
things
strange
that go bump in the
metals
night.
being taken away and told not to say anything about it?
Okay, so first of all, do governments lie? Do they have security cover-ups? Do they have military secrets? Yes, of course. So this is in the middle of the Cold War. This debris that was shown in the photograph was described as, and it looks like, balsa wood, tape, balloons, and in fact, this is Project Mogul. So in the middle of the Cold War, we're launching these high-altitude balloons to monitor Soviet upper atmosphere nuclear explosions.
Larry, we're simply ignoring the evidence. Dr. Shermer isn't a skeptic. He's a debunker. He starts with the presumption there's nothing to this. The explanations away from reality, there's no question that stuff isn't part of what Jesse Marcel brought
this
in.
looks like balsa wood and tape.
Of course it does, but that's not what was found. That's not what was found out in the desert.
This stuff was switched.
No.
They switched it. This
The
is not what
original
flew.
descriptions on July 8th are very different. The rancher was grabbed, brought back into town, fed a whole new story with information that simply doesn't fit reality. The mogul balloon explanation doesn't fit. The materials are wrong, the location is wrong, the timing is wrong.
Would it surprise anybody to learn that our government told people, don't say this, do say that, because we're in the middle of the Cold War? Of course.
The question is to look at the evidence and what he saw.
I saw something totally different from what
He saw.
Look at Stanton go.
He's the only one in the room that saw something.
Yes.
11 years old, but he remembers.
I remember that very well. In spite of being 11,
Man.
because it's such a very intriguing experience. You know, the most important thing I saw was
And they shut him up.
beam-like material had some strange arson symbols along the inner surface. They're purple, violet, semi-reflective of light, but small, about 3/8 of an inch.
Look, this would be the greatest discovery in the history of science. NASA would be elated. Of course, they go to Congress to get more funding. Why would anybody cover this up? And look what happens when they make even the smallest discoveries. Of course, we hear all about it.
James?
I have a question to ask you.
Yes.
If UFOs, and I'm speaking hypothetically for a moment here, if UFOs are real, it would be one of the greatest discoveries of our time. Do you agree with that?
Of course.
Now, if UFOs, when I use the word if, were buzzing around in our airspace, who would be best equipped to know about it?
Well, our government, perhaps.
Military?
Maybe.
So we've
But
got
maybe
the
not.
highest-ranking military officials in the world telling us right now that these things are real. We've got generals, we've got admirals, we've got colonels, we've got presidents.
And if we fast forwarded 20 years in the future to today, actually 2017, our government is telling us UFOs are real. Funny, Shermer? Wow, what a great debunker. That's another thing that makes me sad. Stan Friedman isn't going to be around, nor probably will I. If disclosure is on its way, he's missing it. But I wish, because we're getting a lot of traction. I mean, there's no way around it. We know what's going on. You know, even though we haven't seen anything from, anybody. You know, we got the show coming out in 2 weeks. Unidentified with the Eleganzo. So that's a To the Stars Academy production. I just wish he would have been around to see the next thing. But he's been around for the next thing. Bassett and Greer, we talk about it all the time. Disclosure's going to happen in 2005, 2006, 2008, 2010, 12. I'm not talking about it anymore, they said. It'll happen when it happens. Here's some more clips of Stanton. I think he gets a little fired up here. I love these clips where he gets fired up. Go ahead, play it.
A cosigner may lower your interest
What is
rate.
what?
Act
I
now
don't need
for
a commercial
limited time.
here.
Receive a $50 Visa gift card with your loan. 502.
Commercials. Who the hell tapes for commercials?
The skeptic here is the only one that brings these.
Hey, he drinks beer, too.
We worry about evidence. We don't worry about...
The truth is...
Oh, man,
James,
I got to get some of those.
We want it to be true. Don't you think 90% of the public wants it to be true?
I challenge anyone out there who's watching the show tonight, and I bring this to your attention as well, to watch out of the blue and conclude there's nothing to this phenomenon. It's impossible.
Well, when you say nothing to it, of course there's something to explain.
It's inexplicable.
Before we say something is out of this world, let's first make sure that it's not in this world.
Well,
and there's so much we don't know about the natural world. There's
What
so
is
much
it
we
not?
It could be military
What is it
aircraft.
not? No, hang on a second. The military.
All right, there's a 1997 event in your film,
Yes.
right? What happened?
A very massive craft flew over the state.
Phoenix
of Arizona.
Lights.
Witnessed. No, it's a fact.
Light.
Okay.
Light.
No, a craft. This kid said he could have hit it with a rock.
Don't say
It
massive,
was so low.
just
It was a
something.
massive craft that flew. This kid said he could have hit it with a rock.
Well, so what?
All right, well, I'll just tell you what the
We're
witnesses
watching
told
this
me.
now.
No, you're not.
No, you're not watching.
watching
No, that's not it. That's wrong information.
That's,
Okay.
No, that's
whatever.
right.
That's
B-roll
not
from
the
footage,
Phoenix
but it's-
Lights.
that's-
That is the Phoenix Lights. That's right.
No, those are the flares seen at 10 o'clock Not the massive
Think of that as
thing
eye candy over
seen earlier in the evening by
Larry, back up a minute.
Larry, think of any of us trying to explain what that is at night.
There were a lot of people out under the night sky looking up to get a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet. And at about 8:30, this very large boomerang-shaped craft flew over and was witnessed by hundreds, if not thousands, of people. About 2 months later, an article broke. It got a lot of local media, and an article broke in USA Today, which pretty much put it to the forefront of, in the U.S., the story broke. And Fife Simon came forward, had a press conference, said he was going to get to the bottom of it. He was the governor of Arizona at the time. And later that afternoon, he had a press conference, an unscheduled press conference, where he had one of his aides dressed up in an alien suit and made a joke out of the whole thing. Well, I was always puzzled because I spoke to so many of the witnesses that saw this craft. I was wondering, like, why he did that, why he did what he did. So I contacted him 10 years later, and he not only did he recant the statement, he said he investigated the whole thing.
Because he's a
And
liar.
he himself, who's a captain in the Air Force, saw it.
Let me ask some fair questions.
Okay.
Here we
Are you
go.
Open to the possibility, Michael.
Of course. I mean, all science is open to that. But just being open to it and what we would like to be true does not make it true.
Are you open to the possibility, Jesse, you're wrong?
I am. But not really. Not
Not really. Well, look, Larry, this has all the earmarks of a myth. It started really in the late 1980s. If you look in the UFO literature of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, there's almost no mention of Roswell. Other incidences are the big meccas of UFOlogy.
That shows you how successful they were.
This becomes 40 years after the fact, eyewitnesses start remembering things. We know about the psychology of misremembering, confabulation of different memories. We know the myth make. And think about just one thing. Why would the aliens look like this?
Well,
these are
who drew that?
bipedal.
Who drew that?
Well,
You
this
don't need to
comes
pay
from
money to draw an alien.
this comes from television
Yeah,
designers,
but that's not drawn
from
by
eyewitness
some-
accounts, and once it got started, once this image
You mean
began,
from like the
God, he
National
makes me so mad.
Trade Wacko magazine?
yeah, that's right. But once that became the image of what aliens would look like, that's what people began to see in their dreams and their
E.T.
abduction experiences. That's
Now,
right.
wait a minute.
So
Wait, hang on a
there
second.
you
We're talking
begin.
about
Go
Phoenix,
on
Arizona
shall
now.
we?
Can you finish
The
with that?
Betty and
Hold
Barney
it.
Hill case goes back to 1961. It's a new book by myself and Betty's niece. There was a book in 1966 by John Fuller, The Interrupted Journey, bestseller all over the world. A television movie, James Earl Jones in it, 1975. It updates it by 40 years or so, because Kathleen has all her own stuff. They were strange little guys. And the work was done to elicit these memories by a
Strange little guys. Now, before we get out of here tonight, there are some people's accounts. I think I found one here. People talking about, having memories with Stanton Friedman. Let me pull this up here. These strange little guys. God, that's weird. Hate it when people die. So today, Richie from Boston said we were going to have a what do you call it? An event, some sort of military event in Iran, remember? Did anything happen? Not that I'm aware of. I haven't watched TV all day. All right, so this guy writes about how he first met Stan. This is, who's this by? It doesn't say, really, does it? Well, Paul Kimball? No. This is just a report. It doesn't say who it's by. Maybe it does. I remember seeing somebody's name. But anyway, the guy goes on. He says, when I first met Stan, when he visited Winnipeg in about 76, during the Charlie Red Star UFO furore. He gave a lecture about UFOs at the University of Manitoba and received a standing ovation. After this talk, we met and exchanged info. Ever since then, we had kept in touch and got together, or at least spoke on the phone every year. Stan stayed with me sometimes when he came to Winnipeg, choosing to sleep on my couch rather than in a nondescript motel room, but mostly to save money. He was a mentor, a rebel, a challenger, and most of all, a friend. He had a remarkable career in physics, although he never received his doctorate. Oh. In his words, Stanton says, I worked my way through 5 years of college as a busboy. in the Catskill Mountains, and then as a union waiter at Windermere East Hotel on the south side of Chicago, within walking distance of the University of Chicago. I was anxious to join the real world, which I had done in industry where a PhD was not required. First, a General Electric Aircraft Nuclear Propulsion Department near Cincinnati, then Aerojet General Nucleonics near San Francisco on compact nuclear reactors and fusion for space applications. Then General Motors Allison Division in Indianapolis on portable nuclear reactors for space systems, and the Westinghouse Astronuclear Labs on fission rocket reactors for space applications. I must have set a record for working on canceled programs because of these guys. He's best known as the flying saucer physicist. As a scientist, I've always felt that one wasn't entitled to a scientific opinion if one hasn't read the relevant literature. Often over the years in my Flying Saucers Are Real lectures, I discussed 5 large-scale scientific studies and then asked my audience how many had read each of them. Typically fewer than 2% had read any. Included were the biggest study ever done for the Air Force, Project Blue Book, Special Report 14, the congressional hearings on July 29, 1968, which statements from 12 scientists, including Allen Hynek, myself, and Carl Sagan, Allen's book UFOs, A Scientific Inquiry, Edward Condon's The Scientific Study of UFOs, and McDonald's congressional paper. Anyway, he's been around a while, speaking Minnesota Paracons all over. Canada. Didn't he go to Brazil? He talks about how ufology affected his family and personal life. All these you can see. I'll post this in the chat room now for you, so you guys can get all of these links. When he talked about retiring, talked about the Clinton Podesta UFO emails, Aztec UFO crash from Minnesota Paracon, everything that was pretty important here. So I'm going to drop the link into the show. So here it is. So guys, that's it for tonight. I want to say thanks for coming here and listening to me talk about Stanton Friedman. And I wish I would have had him on now that I look back, but I can't do that now. Who knows? Maybe in a month we'll reach out to him another way. We can wait a month, right? A month's a good time to let him get to heaven. Hey, you get to heaven, you want to get to know your room, you got to get your wings put on. It's a whole to-do. It's a ceremonial thing. That's what I heard. Yeah. Well, they do the same thing when you go to hell. Just a lot of red meat. I don't know what that means. But I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight, hanging out. Let's see if this blows our ears off. Is it? What is this? I knew it would. Alright, guys. We'll be back tomorrow night. Got a lot of things to talk about in ufology. And I will catch up with you later. Rest in peace, Stan Friedman. We will miss you, my friend. Guys, have a good night.